Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where today is the day my AMG GT Black Series is home. We're heading up to My Car Import to crack open the container to unload it fresh from its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. It sounds ridiculous to say that, but it will be back here at the Shmuseum later on, back with the other Shmeemobiles. It's been in the United States for around 9 or 10 months. I drove it there about 14,000 miles. In fact, before that, it had even been to the Middle East for a couple of thousand miles of driving, but it's arguably quadrupled its mileage since it was last here. We're going to be heading up today in the Skoda Octavia VRS, our team car here at the Shmuseum, to go up to My Car Import, who did the logistics behind the Zenvo registration here, who brought over the GT500 from the US and made it UK registered, also actually imported and registered my SLS Black Series as well, plus sent GT Black over to the US in the first place. This is one very global car, one very personal and special car to me, and it's going to be back home later on with the Black Series trio back here at the Shmuseum. So let's hop in the car and let's go and get it. There is potentially one very big problem that we might be running into a little bit later on. Let me explain. For this sailing across the Atlantic, the battery in the GT Black Series was not disconnected. Now, normally that wouldn't be an issue. The sailing time from the northeast of America across to Europe takes around 7 to 10 working days. Throw in a few more at each end for customs, for loading, unloading, all of that side of things. But I've been getting a few notifications from the car as it was leaving from America, and again when it arrived back over towards the UK a few days ago. But in the case of the GT Black Series, it's a little bit different because firstly, it has a lightweight lithium battery, which doesn't have the same longevity as normal. Secondly, because it has a lithium battery, if it is stone cold dead on arrival, you cannot jump start it. If you jump start the car, you run the risk of frying the electronics, needing to replace all sorts of ECUs and wiring looms, and having a very big bill as a result. Now, it's been traveling in a 40-foot container alongside another car and a bike, and I don't know which order they are in inside the container. We'll see that when we get to My Car Import, but obviously I don't want to be the one that's causing a major problem. But this is where CTEK step in. Now, a bit of a backstory: all of the Shmeemobiles here at the garage are plugged into CTEK smart chargers. We have the CTEK CS1 here on the Clio V6, which actually is very clever because it works regardless of the battery type, whether it's lead acid or if it's lithium ion, and also even with the clamps, if you need to use those instead of one of the smart connectors, can go either way round. The polarity doesn't matter on those either, which is brilliant. Every car is plugged into one of those, keeps the batteries topped up, makes sure that they all work as a result. Now, there is a solution which we have here in the boot of the Skoda. We have a CTEK CS3 to take with us. Now, the beauty of the CTEK CS3 is that this is a battery charger with a battery built in itself. So as opposed to having to jump the car, you can actually charge it up remotely without needing to be near a power socket, near a power supply, by connecting this up to get enough charge into it to either awaken the battery or to charge it up to get it started. And I can tell you from experience that this is hopefully going to save the day should there be any risk. Obviously, we hope that the battery is going to be completely fine once we get there, but if for any reason it isn't, the CS3 is going to get us going. Let's hop in the Skoda though and get on the move. Brad is taking the wheel for now. Get the Skoda out and get ready for a few hours on the road to My Car Import. I'm taking it chilled in the passenger seat, but we've got the delights of the M1 as we make our way north up towards My Car Import, where of course I've been a few times. Thankfully, the weather is very much on side today. It was forecast to be a little bit nasty, so I'm quite happy about this. Although I think cleaning the GT Black Series is going to be the least of its problems. As per my last update, when we packed it up and dropped it off at West Coast Shipping to come over this way, it needs a few things. There's going to be a little bit of work to get everything sorted out, to get it fully back to the condition it should be, shall we say. For the time being at least, while it might be busy, we're making some flowing progress onwards to My Car Import. This is quite fun. So Cars did actually help me when my GT Black Series was in the US with storage, both in California and also in Miami. But I want to draw your attention to that yellow Ford GT40, because that is the very car that I rode in out at the Simeone Foundation in Philadelphia a few short weeks ago. That's awesome to see on the back. Little bit of car spotting, 991.2 GT3, looks very nice. I used to have one of those, in fact, exactly like that, obviously in bright green. Something cool coming past. Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. Pretty good day of car spotting on the M1 as it happens, and I think that GT3 we saw earlier is somewhere coming through as well. There we go. God, that's loud. Cool. Very cool. Thanks to the tracking system, and I use global telemetrics, I know that my car has just arrived. We are about 10, well 11 minutes away at the moment, thanks to the Apple CarPlay Android Auto that we have here in the Skoda. So the GT Black Series is awaiting, and it feels like a new car day. Even though I've done nearly 20,000 miles with this thing, it feels like being back on a different continent to the last, well, for a GT Black Series, what probably would normally be a lifetime of driving that I've done with it since it's been away, and now it's back home. It's back here, and obviously that's meant a whole lot of logistics and organising and things we'll talk about, and of course things that have needed to be ordered, but we'll get onto that a little bit more once we've got it unloaded and once we're there and seeing it in person. This is it. That is the truck with the container behind it that has my car inside that we're going to be unloading in a moment. So we are here at My Car Import, who have the perfect unloading facility to do this, which you'll see in a second. So we're going to park up, go say hello, and come out and get this opened up and find the car inside it. Now that we're here and you can hear the beeping in the background as the truck over here is actually reversing backwards, I'm clutching at this box because even though the tracker is pinging, I have a little bit of anxiety as to whether it's going to work properly. Anyway, this is the exact same ramp where we unloaded my Shelby GT500 after that had sailed over from the US. But of course on that day, the car hadn't yet been registered in the UK, so I couldn't drive it home. Today, we can literally pull the car out of here. We believe there's a 53 Chevy inside as well, which we're going to see in a second. Don't know which way around the cars are, but we believe once it's unloaded and hopefully all has gone to plan, or we know, I can just drive it straight back home. And that's the kind of weird thing. So, all coming up in just a moment. It's time to open it up and see what we have at the back here. We don't know which way around they are. I can see a flash of yellow. There it is. Wow. Back this side of the ocean, the AMG GT Black Series has made it home. I always forget how fast that entire process was, basically taking the angle grinder to the lock on the container, opening the doors, and then the car is right there, ready to be unloaded. It happens in literally seconds, and hopefully it's just going to start once it's been unstrapped and be ready to drive out, just kind of like that, smooth and simple. It's a bit unreal, actually. It really makes no sense, but it just gets lined up, because the beauty of this is that the base level of the container is then at that height, and this car thankfully should just be able to drive straight down without scraping. GT500 was definitely a little bit close to the line, but this one's quite easy going. It's cool to see how this works. Only 3 weeks later. That's the mad thing about this, really. It's got here so fast. The car is held down really quite securely, as you can see. Lots of wooden chocks that have to be knocked out of the way. Obviously, given it goes on a ship at sea, you want to make sure it's very, very tight and secure, which is obviously what they have done with all of this at the other end. Just got to get them all out to make sure that the car can be safely removed. There are some straps which have obviously been cut out and removed as well. It's actually quite clean and tidy, to be honest. Obviously, I mentioned a few things that need to have some work done. That will all come soon. But this is the first part of the process to get it out of here. This is going to be the moment of truth then, whether the car is going to start up, whether we can hear it, or whether we're going to have to be crawling in. Yes! Success! Done! Didn't skip a beat. That's with valves closed, by the way. Quiet mode for moving around ports and yards and things. But there it is. She's alive. Emerging into daylight in England again. Of course the car started here. It started here in satin black. Then I changed it at Chartwell, not too far from where we are now, to this stunning solar beam yellow. Then obviously flew it out to the Middle East. Container shipped it back, shipped it out to Miami originally, started my trip from New York, and it's now come back from the Big Apple back home. And she's out. This is ridiculous. The car is here. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's so cool to see it coming out. What an awesome, awesome thing. I can't wait to drive this home. I just, yeah. Low supercar problems when it comes to being down on the ground. Obviously at the front you have a lot of carbon fiber, but there is some kind of protective rubber right underneath it. Question is, how low is this going to get when it gets right down towards the bottom? With some wooden chocks to make it a touch easier, back we go, ready to drop down, and we are off. The car is on the ground. Oh, this is so good. This is so cool. It's home. It's actually home. Ready to be driven back to the Shmuseum. This is where, as I was saying, exhaust valves. I've got the exhaust valve controller just here. I think I need to be inside the car. There we go. It is now opened up, rumbling away. The kind of strange thing now is I can literally just jump in the car and drive home. I've not sat in it yet, again, since we've been back, so I guess I probably should. And at least this time, we're on the right side, quite literally. Obviously, and I'm sorry to talk about this again, windscreen, new one is here. It's going to be changed very soon. It's going to have the correct fix. We're literally heading straight home to go and get this back. So let's, actually it was running for a long time. Let's do a noisy start quickly. It's so strange to have this car here. And of course, no surprises, we're very low on fuel because obviously I had to drain that out on my last drive to bring it down. I never changed the time. The time always stayed on British summertime, the correct time here when we left. I just decided that would be fun, so I always could just see what the time was back at home. Obviously that went wrong, so winter time, etc., different story. But yeah, it's here, it's ready. So let me get my cameras rigged up and let's have the first drive back in England. This is deja vu to collecting the GT500. We are going to go straight to a petrol station, and I also need to remember to drive on the correct side of the road, which is the left side of the road when we're back here in England, and I'm going to stay back here because there is a very big container on the back of a truck turning around in front of me. So yeah, the last time I drove this car was in New Jersey in the United States of America. I am now driving it here in the United Kingdom, heading back home from where we are at my car import near Donington Park, as it happens, where I've also driven this car, back down towards London. I mean, this is absolutely crazy, honestly. This whole process and concept of doing this just blows my mind, and the guys here handle it superbly. I cannot commend them enough or recommend them enough to anybody else who's considering sending a car around the world, or even just importing a car that you buy somewhere else. I'm going to be doing much more of this. It's so much fun, and I've said obviously this car's been all around Europe, it's been to the Middle East, Asia, it's been now to North America. There are 3 other continents that we can go and drive on. There's one continent we can't drive on. Tempting, very tempting. So let's see what happens on that front. For now, it's the steady drive back home with the Skoda behind me. This is, I just can't get my head around it. It's the idea of sending something that's so big and heavy somewhere so far away. It's like checking in your suitcase. Like, it's less hassle in some ways than checking in a suitcase, because you don't have to deal with overweight fees and taking stuff to different drop-off points and whatnot. It's just a smooth and simple thing to do that's so much fun, just unreal. You know, you can't rent a car like this for a 14,000 mile trip. There's no option to do that, and even if there was an option to do that, it would be cost prohibitive anyway. It's just it's just awesome. It's just really awesome. Oh, typically I pulled in at the one pump that doesn't have a premium fuel. We definitely need some good fuel. That's quite funny to think about after all of the tanks of US fuel that this car has had over 3/4 of its life. It is now here, ready for some proper, well, 97 RON that we have here. Let's go get it filled up. Armed now with a full tank of fuel, one of the things I find quite funny about this is that the gap from the last time I drove this car until today has actually been shorter than some of the gaps when I left the car in the US and came back to the UK for a period. That's how quickly it's made it home, but we're pretty much straight away turning onto the M1, back onto the motorway, being reminded that UK roads are significantly bumpier than just about anywhere else. Although I say that, the Northeast has some pretty bad sections. Upstate New York, various different states we've been through, but very much now, just chill, cruise back home, enjoy the drive, enjoy being back in this car, driving it on the side of the road that it was intended to be driven for the first time in such a long time as it happens. Navigating some busy bits in the traffic here. But yeah, here we are. GT Black Series, back in action, back in England, ready and raring to rock and roll. And I've actually got some plans right around the corner for this thing. For now, let us get it back home, back to the Shmuseum after nearly a year away. This has been a pretty smooth journey, it has to be said. We did have one bit of traffic, there's a lot of roadworks on the M1 at the moment, but basically now back towards the London area. M1 meets the M25, and you know what, in here, it's just a lovely car to drive on a journey like this. Despite having bucket seats and a roll cage behind, it's comfortable, it's gentle, it's nice. Yes, okay, on our country lanes that we have in the UK, it tends to get bounced around a lot. It's not the best in that sense because it's very wide and it's very stiff, but for long distance journeys like I did in the US, it's about as good as I could dream to have, really. This is kind of the perfect car for that type of adventure. The fact that it's rare and cool, it's great when you get to a racetrack or a twisty road, there's a good dealer network, it's dependable, it's reliable, it's practical for long distance drives with lots of stuff on you, of course, suitcases and things. It works very well. Anyway, before too long, we'll be back at base, pull this into the Shmuseum, and there are a few other things I'd like to tell you about as well. How cool is this then? The GT Black Series back at home. To think about this a little bit more, when I bought this car, it was in the UK only for about 4 months, during which, of course, it spent about half of that time being repainted. Then it went out to the Middle East. That trip was about 6 months in total. It came back for only around 2 months before it then went away for what's been literally 9.5 months. So this car has only spent, to date, about 4 months of the nearly 2 years that I've owned it here in the barn. In fact, it's only driven around 10% of its total mileage in the UK, full stop. Arguably, I probably should have got a left-hand drive one, although I think UK cars, you could only get a right-hand drive one anyway. So we'll kind of ignore that for the time being. But it's going to be here now for a little bit longer. I say that. I've got a short trip planned with it right up ahead. But yeah, it's home. It's home after some pretty mega journeys. To think that this very car has been in Times Square, New York. It's been in Miami. It's been to Rodeo Drive, Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, California. It's been to so many places. It's been to the houses of so many familiar YouTube names. The Stradman, Chris Fix, obviously Street Speed, Vin Wiki, Tavares. It's done so many things while it's been away in the US, and thankfully today it didn't need a CS3 to get us up and running, but to have that backup and to know that we were going to be able to top up the battery if it had died completely is a pretty important thing. And obviously we've had to use that for plenty of different cars in different spaces over time. I had a few things in the back here, just stuff I've acquired along the way, cleaning products, that kind of stuff. And of course, all of this we actually added at the penultimate stop, visiting Chris Fix. A Chris Fix logo up there as well. I mean, it's been to Whistling Diesel's estate. It's been to the Peterson Museum, obviously Hamilton Collection as well, Patina Collective in Florida. Even these places are so far away from one another. And to think that's just the start. I never got a Nürburgring, GP or Nordschleife sticker. It's been there before, and small hint, it might be going there again. So this is going to expand in the near future. So fun to have these memories, to have those experiences and moments with it. Now, my plan for what we do next is to pop that under the SLS. Obviously, we have the SLS Black here, we have the C63 Black here. I'm going to lift this up, get this lift up high, pop that underneath, and then we will have a complete wall of the Benpack Auto Stackers as well. It's been a while since I think we had 14 cars across the 7 lifts. So let me make this happen. Lift this one, pull that back, and we'll wrap things up. Up it goes, SLS up to the upper level. With that parked back up then, under the lifts, it's actually very citrus around here, but it's also the first time each of these have ever seen each other, which, given I've owned them both for about 2 years, is quite funny because, of course, that was in America. I sailed it over back here at the same time that went the other way. They were kind of crossing in the Atlantic. So now that that's come home, the GT500 and the GT Black Series, which are both the flagship ultimate track versions of their regular models, the Mustang and the AMG GT, and now they're together here at the Shmuseum. So I think that pretty much wraps us up for today. How cool is it to have this back at home? Like I said, upcoming trip to take it back to the Nürburgring. I've driven some laps on the Nordschleife with it before, but it's going to be a whole lot of fun to take it back out. And thankfully, the day has passed without any major dramas. A huge thanks to My Car Imports, a huge thanks as well to C-Tech, of course, for making the gear to get us out of any sticky situations. And a huge thanks as well to you guys for your support, without which it wouldn't be possible. The GT Black Series is home, but that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!